Welcome to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. My name is Jamie Irvin, and today we are live. As always, with our live broadcast, we would love to have you participate. So feel free to comment, post comments, ask questions. We would like you to participate, so please do so. And you can do that on YouTube, Facebook, or on LinkedIn. Today, we're going to talk about something that I think it's an important subject. It relates to the relationship between the dealership network and the aftermarket and the independent service channel. There is a bit of a stigma in the independent side about fleets doing business with dealers and buying their parts and service from dealers. We're going to get to the bottom of that. So I've invited Brandon Thomas to come on the show. Now, Brandon works for WKI Kenworth. He started in the industry in 2008. He started in shipping and receiving, like many of us did, starting in one of those jobs where you get to kind of learn the basics of the business. And then he worked his way up. He's participated in the sales role. He's worked for Mack Volvo dealerships. He's now working for a Kenworth dealership, and now he is a parts manager. So, Brandon, welcome to the Heavy Duty Parts Report. So glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me here, Jamie.
Well, let's talk about this kind of elephant in the room. You're going to represent the dealer's perspective today. I'll do my best to represent the aftermarket. There is a bit of a stigma when it comes to doing business with the dealers, especially in the second and third owners, that, I'd like to kind of, from your perspective, understand what that stigma is, and then we can kind of talk about whether or not it's real or not.
Right on. Let's get into it. Yeah. So that stigma that I think you're addressing is the fact that it's more expensive to step foot into a dealership to get your parts or get your service done.
Yeah, exactly. And, I know from my years of working in the industry, especially as a sales account manager and when I was a national sales manager, I talked to a lot of people, and especially in that second and third owner, that idea that going to the dealership in the end just flat out costs more money, and is that extra cost really worth it, right? So that's the subject. We're going to try to get to the bottom of that today, and I wanted to just extend my appreciation for you being willing to come on the show and talk to us about this, because I think that the more we discuss these issues and the more open and transparent we are, I think everybody benefits. Wouldn't you agree?
I would. I think that there is a gap between aftermarket and dealerships. It's almost like it's one or the other, when really we can work together. And there's a lot of benefit in incorporating aftermarket in dealerships. So I think we reach the end user, and that's what matters, taking care of our customers.
That's right. So let's talk about parts for a minute. For years, truck dealers have been making a concerted effort to expand into the aftermarket. If you work in aftermarket, that's worrisome, because you can see the available market share eroding over time. We had John Ademi on from Northwest Heavy Duty. He's a sales rep agency that works actually with manufacturers for the truck dealers, the truck OEs. And the statistics that he was saying was that, from basically 30 years ago to now, the truck dealership groups, they have gone from maybe about 35% of the aftermarket they had back then to now well over 50. And some people have said that maybe the goal is to get to 60 or 70% of the aftermarket going through the truck dealership groups. So what's the motivation behind this move from your perspective? I'm kind of curious about that.
So the trucking industry it's a huge industry, right? There's different makes and models of these trucks. So to your point, yes, the dealerships are trying to get into the aftermarket for the benefit of our customers for the long runs, because we know that not everybody's going to buy a new truck, and that's the kind of anchor point that dealers have. You buy a new truck, we take care of your warranty, you have to come back to us. However, a lot of guys are keeping older stuff around for whatever reasons. You know the reasons as well does all the other listeners. But we're trying to get into that so that we keep our customers on the road, and keeping them on the road with a dealership network creates consistencies across the board. So you stop at, for us at WKI, you stop at our Kenworth, we're going to take care of you at a certain level. And that's the same level that you can expect all through Southern Kansas, all 4 of our stores. And even in our bigger PACCAR umbrella, that consistency has a place. Now, I would go back to the earlier statistics that you gave me. And I would say, yeah, they're working with OEMs to get aftermarket in there, but as soon as it gets put on that new truck, it is no longer aftermarket, it is now OEM. So having those options, even in our industry right now where we're having parts shortages and chip shortages and stuff like that, that having those different vendors that we can put on OEMs really, really benefits not only the customer, but any aftermarket or any dealer group.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying there. So what you're saying is that if I was like a second owner of a truck, and I bring that truck in, a Kenworth in, and I buy quote unquote an aftermarket part from the dealership, because I'm buying it from the dealership, it's really viewed as the same as if I bought a original equipment part the first time around, because it is supported by the overall PACCAR umbrella. Is that do I got that right?
So yes, and it's some of the weeds that we have to get through is if it's, in our case, it would be the PACCAR umbrella or our store. But it really goes back to the vendor's warranty. So in our world, if it's new on a truck, our PACCAR umbrella will take care of it as a warranty. Now, if you come in and you say, hey, I got this starter, I have, a 96 Peterbilt and I need to put this starter on there. What do you guys have? We're not going to give you the PACCAR starter. Nobody's going to want to pay for that. And honestly, that warranty doesn't justify getting put on that older truck. So we're going to give you a good, better, best option. And here at WKI, and this is a little bit of information for the listeners, when you get that good, better, best, we value that not only because it's a smaller sales price to our customer, but here at WKI, we go through vendors over and over again, and we interview them and make sure that their warranty's up to par. Like, I don't want to sell you a starter that's going to have a 1-year warranty, and then when it comes down to getting the warranty, for whatever reason, the starter fails and you bring it back into me, and the vendor says, no, we're not going to do that, because that makes us look bad, and that's bad on the customer. And I'm right. Sure that's something you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. Like, you're trying to make sure that you're providing the customer, whoever that is, with the maximum uptime. You're trying to keep them on the road longer. The last thing you want is to sell a part that ends up, like you said, failing prematurely. It completely goes against the motivation behind the move towards second, third owners and the aftermarket. Let me ask you something. So when it comes to dealing with a dealership parts counter, there is a couple differences from dealing with a parts counter in an aftermarket store. I mean, obviously, one is if that truck is a Kenworth or a Peterbilt, you have access to the VIN, and aftermarket doesn't. But there's still some questions that every fleet or owner operator should be asking when they're buying parts from your parts counter. And what are some of those questions that are really important for them to ask the counter?
Well, before, there's questions that you have to ask yourself before you even approach the counter. And one of those questions, and this is probably the most important on parts and service side, is my truck have any kind of extended warranty? If it does have any kind of extended warranty, if I bought my truck used, there's obviously a warranty. If I bought it used from a dealer, did I buy some sort of extended warranty? And that's the first question, which is going to involve a lot more questions depending on yes or no. You can draw a word tree and it gets confusing, but the things that really help you and help your bottom line is knowing the answers to these questions. So one of the biggest things we see as a dealer is the extended warranties that we sell out of our used truck sales department we have to be very careful on what we provide those trucks, because if you buy, some cheap aftermarket thing to throw on that truck, there's a very good possibility that it has now voided whatever warranty that you purchased. So the next question that you would ask is, if I do have an extended warranty, where is a point of contact where I can consult that extended warranty and make sure that I'm making the right choice for my truck to keep it on the road and to cover that warranty? Now, if you answer no to all of that, then it's up to you to ask the dealers, or the dealers, actually, I would say not up to the customer, but up to the counter. A good counterman will give you a good, better, best solution. They'll give you a cheaper part that would get you out the door, and it's going to last you a year, or they're going to give you a better part that has its own warranty, but it might not cover labor, or they're going to give you an option for the best part, which is going to be probably more expensive, but it doesn't only cover your parts warranty, but your labor warranty at any location that you take it to. So knowing those questions to ask, like, hey, give me your options of, let's just pick on the starter again. Give me your options. I need a starter that I know I can trust. And when I leave your state to go to another state or another country, and that starter fails me prematurely, do I know that starter will get replaced at a different dealership, or will that vendor take care of mine? And that's my problems. And that's the question you ask yourself prior to getting up, or if you got that counter guy at whatever dealership or location that you trust is giving you that information, if that makes sense.
It does. And it really demonstrates the difference in perspective from the dealer to the aftermarket. I mean, obviously in an aftermarket situation, those considerations about extended warranty and that are extended to used trucks, I mean, that isn't even something that you even think about, right? So that was interesting to me to hear that difference in the starting point when you're dealing with a dealership. So we touched on it a little bit, but regardless of where the parts technician works, there is an obligation on the parts technician to inform the customer of their options, right? And it's so important for them to do that, because just throwing parts, or just, if the customer comes in and says, I need this, they might have some bad information. They might be misinformed. So when you're working with your parts technicians, how do you train them and help them to kind of walk the customer through and go to that deeper level, so you make sure you get them the solution that they need?
So here at WKI, we really pride ourselves on building that knowledge. I don't know if you ever experienced this, but when I started in the industry, one of the things about knowledge is it was coveted. It was kept to themselves, because that guy on the counter, he knew. So everybody had to come to him, and that gave him worth. And unfortunately, as humans, we tend to be selfish. I know I am. But at the end of the day, one of the things that we've overcome here with this group and with my coworkers, my other parts managers, we really believe in developing and getting that information from the vendors to our counter, so that gets to the customer. So one of the big things is training, and we spend, I don't want to give a dollar value, but it's a lot of money making sure that our guys are trained through every avenue that we get. And one of the ways that we train is through videos and vendors like Meritor and stuff like that, where we have a rep come out and teach us everything about that, and then that knowledge is supposed to be passed on to our customers. So I say, at least here, our guys are equipped to better the customer going forward. And a lot of dealerships are modeled the very exact same way. But I figure the best way to start it is, sometimes you can trust a good dealer, and sometimes you've got selfish people out there that don't take care of things the way that I believe, my own personal opinion, should be taken care of. So I think educating our customers from avenues like your podcast and avenues through that interaction at the front counter or a monthly newsletter, is equipping them with, it might not be all the information. That's our jobs, right? We're to get all the information, but at least equipping them with the entry level questions that get them to the information that they need. And that's what my guys and my team throughout southern Kansas really pride ourselves in doing, is equipping our guys to take care of the customers.
I'm kind of curious. So when you're on the counter at your dealership, how reliant on the VIN lookup are your parts people? What happens if it goes outside of the Kenworth Peterbilt brand? Like, how do you tackle that? Because then you're up against the same challenges that the aftermarket are, where you don't necessarily have that VIN lookup.
So that's a great question. And a little bit of the insider on that is we have to rely on other dealerships just like you guys do, or programs just like you do. The thing that really, thing that really stinks about having to rely on those people is you have to build those relationships. You got to network and then get people that you can be reliable on. But the way that technology is coming nowadays, there's programs out there to where you can purchase a laptop and find the information you need, and dealers are investing in that just as well, just like the aftermarket industry is. So we build networks. I would say networking is our biggest thing, but a lot of the knowledge is based on, I think it's 75% of a truck now is interchangeable.
Yeah.
So you can find an aftermarket on 75% of the trucks. So we rely on our vendors to give us line cards or information so that we can get that accurate parts lookup without having to rely on a different dealer that has another agenda, or, just at the end of the day, it's taking care of that customer. And we got to do what we got to do. But that's the avenue. Is I'd say networking and our vendors would be the biggest thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that, because that was what I discovered working with the Diesel Parts platform, as that platform has been built by Diesel Laptops.
Mm-hmm.
They discovered that because all the tier 1 manufacturers have an OE side of their business and an aftermarket side, a lot of the actual components, the parts, are universal between many of the different makes of trucks in North America. And that was kind of a surprise, because everybody thinks like, oh, well, it's a Kenworth Peterbilt, it's going to be completely different than maybe like a Mack Volvo. But there's some similarities, because maybe Meritor is making the same part, or ZF Wabco, or whoever. So as soon as you step outside of that VIN lookup, then I guess you're at the same mercy of the same constraints on information. But that is changing really fast. And I'll tell you a story. Last year, before COVID, I was at the ATD meetings in Las Vegas for the American Trucking Association of dealers, truck dealers. And I was surprised, because we had been at HDAW the month before in Texas, where it's all aftermarket. And we had lots of interest in diesel parts back then. But the dealers were almost more interested, because so many of the dealership groups now are running like an all makes program. And so as soon as they step out of that VIN lookup, they've got those same constraints and are trying to find solutions to that. And we had just overwhelming interest in that lookup tool, because it provided them the ability to service a wider range of customers.
Right. And to build off of what you just said, it's getting bigger, and we do have that interest in getting into it. And a lot of the problems that aftermarkets face right now that we're getting into as well is the crosses aren't necessarily exactly what you put in a part number, you get a cross, you're like, okay, I'll order this, and then you bring it in, and then okay, it's missing a valve on this height control valve that I really need on my application. So one of the things that I would like to also help bridge that gap between aftermarket and dealerships is we inherit a lot of that risk for you. Mm-hmm. So my parts professionals that's what they do every day. They're not wrenching, they're not turning it. I have a service department for that. I have guys that are studying these aftermarket parts across all the platforms, and WKI and the Adams have really done a good job giving this information and giving this opportunity to our guys to grow. And one of the things is we'll take that risk on for you. So we'll order those parts in aftermarket, and usually we get a because of our bulk purchasing, we'll be able to give it to you from that same vendor cheaper than what you would get it from that direct vendor. And look, now you don't have to pay freight. Now you don't have to worry about when it does come in wrong and that cross is incorrect. We have that vendor relationship to send it back and get you the right thing. So it's the same thing. You guys run across, just you get to involve a dealer network and they take all the risk out of it for you.
Right. So you mentioned your service department. Let's talk about that for a minute. There's a big difference between $150 an hour and $90 an hour for service. This is probably why there also is that stigma that dealers are more expensive, because their labor rates are often higher than the independent service channel. What do you say to someone who is saying, hey, why are you $150 and this person over here is 90?
So that's a great point, and that's something that we see daily across all of our locations. And so there's no easy way to just cut it. So I say it like this. The reason why dealerships are higher is because there's a training aspect involved in bringing that tech up to par. Now that tech's bringing it up to par is on the OEM side. So a lot of this stuff is going digital now on these trucks. A lot of this stuff, before these trucks even get to our dealerships, they're sending us codes on what needs repaired and stuff like that. And we have to send these these technicians off to training classes yearly to get updated on the new stuff. And it's a difference. So you pay $159 an hour. You pay for 1 hour for a guy to change a taillight. Now, let's say, or you come in with taillight issues. Let's say that's your issue. So you're paying $150 at a dealership. And honestly, that's on a low end. You get into some of the major stuff, you're looking at 200 plus an hour. But for us, let's just say use 150 for an easy number. You come to us and we diagnose it and say, okay, you're having issues with your taillights not coming on. Well, let's say you take it to another mom and pop shop and it's somebody that's reparable. So they reparable. But they change the taillights for you because you're having taillight issues. Here we have the knowledge to know that through the OEM, this ECU or this engine control unit is telling the taillights not to work because of some programming issue. So you change the taillights at the mom and pop shop, it puts them back on for, let's say a week, and then they go back off again. And then here you come and you have to pay an extra 150 or an extra $50. But my guy is trained to know, hey, this is an industry problem. Let's just reset the ECU, get the correct parameters set, and then you're back on the road instead of tackling just the taillights, because we have that knowledge. Now, that's not always the case, but because of that training, we have to account for it somewhere. And that's why the labor rate's higher.
Yeah, one of the things I learned in doing research when I was getting ready to launch this show is I talked to a lot of independent service channel heavy duty technicians, and these are very talented people, but they all consistently told me that compared to a technician that works at a dealership, they really didn't have the resources, they didn't have the training, they didn't have access to the things that a technician at an actual dealership would have access to. And this was one of the things that was a real challenge for them, especially since the iron is becoming so much more sophisticated with all of the electronics and computers and controls. It's just not like it was 25 or 30 years ago.
No, it's gotten away from the mechanical aspect of it. It's you got a computer telling everything. It's measuring the compression in the engine. It's formulating how that engine fires so that you get the best fuel economy that you can get. And the more and more that comes across, I mean, you're right. Nothing against the mom and pop techs. Some of the guys that I've met out there, they just have that. I don't know what to call it, but a green thumb, like for just knowing how to get stuff fixed. And it's getting harder and harder. And there's great avenues out there to get you started in the industry. There's a guy out of Columbus, Ohio that has a diesel tech school that helps get these guys started. But until you get into those OEMs, and it's from dealer to dealer, you can't take a guy that's from the PACCAR world and the Pete and the Kenworth and then send him over to Mack and Volvo and expect him to have the same. He's going to have to start all over again with all their training and all their engineering. So unfortunately, that's why you end up paying a higher price at a dealership, is because it comes with a level. Let me put it this way. It should come with a level of expertise that helps you get back on the road permanently rather than putting a Band-Aid on it and getting it down.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Were you referring to American Diesel Training Center out of Columbus? Yeah. We had Aaron Picozzi on the show a little while ago, and I know Tim Spurlock, so big shout out to them. Well, you know what? This has been a good conversation. I think we've represented both sides of the issue, but let's go back to our original question. There's a stigma about buying from a dealer that it's more expensive. What would you say to people? Are dealers actually more expensive?
No, they're not. Their options give you a good, better, best. And most of the time, with the right person behind that counter that's looking out for your business, just your dealership, that your local dealership, if it's a partner with you in your business, it's not more expensive, because they're going to look for what's the best thing for your truck to keep your fleet and your group on the road for as little bang in your money as possible.
Yeah. We had a comment come in here. Tim Phillips, he says, I've worked for both an OE supplier and an aftermarket replacement. If the aftermarket supplier meets the OE specifications, is there a difference? Great question, Tim. What would you say to that, Brandon? So, is there really a difference as long as that OE spec is being met?
So, Tim, one of the unfortunate things about warranty is we're at the mercy of whoever's warranty that is. So there are some interchangeable parts between certain engines. However, if we use one part number over another part number, it will not allow that warranty to go through because it's not gone through the correct channels. But if it's out of warranty, that supplier, that OE supplier and that aftermarket supplier, it's not going to matter. It's going to be the same parts warranty. So it's usually better to go with the cheaper option because you're going to have the same coverage. So it doesn't make sense to spend that extra money. But to answer your question, unfortunately, no, unless the aftermarket or the OE supplier recognizes them. I can give you a great example of that. PACCAR has their own genuine torque arms, but they consider Atro an upgrade, so it doesn't void any warranty.
Yeah. Tim, I'll give you another example too, is when you go to the Baldwin filter factory, there are yellow Cat filters going down the left side of the line and red Baldwin filters going down the right. And they are identical inside. But the Cat one might be 20 to 40% more for the yellow. So you're paying a lot more money for that yellow can than you are from the red one. And the Baldwin guys, when I was working with them and supplying their parts, they spread that freely around to everyone. So, but they were working on the aftermarket side and really didn't care. I'm sure their OE counterparts were like, shut up, don't say that.
But at the end of the day, that actually grew our industry closer together. So Cat got away from OE filters. They recognize it on their engines now. If it has a Baldwin or hell, if it has a Fleet Guard on there, they recognize those filters so it doesn't void a warranty. But that's a good question, because you have to ask your supplier, your OE supplier or your warranty department, is this going to screw up something in the future for me? So that's a great question. Those are the right questions to ask.
Absolutely. And I carried letters from all of the engine manufacturers from the actual executive of each engine manufacturer. I had 4 letters: Detroit, Cummins, all of them. And every one of them said this filter is will not void warranty. And I carried them with me as an aftermarket sales guy because I had to have every advantage possible to try to compete. So it's been a great conversation, Brandon. Thank you very, very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem, Jamie. I had a lot of fun.
And if people want to learn more, they can go to wichitakenworth.com to learn about your 4 locations. And if they're in that area, we encourage you to go in and say hi to Brandon.
Yeah, no doubt. I look forward to it.
All right, sir. Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you very soon.
Sounds good.
Okay. Bye-bye. My name is Jamie Irvin. I'm the host of the Heavy Duty Parts Report, and today we were live with Brandon Thomas. We're talking about the stigma of buying from a dealer. Are they really more expensive? I think we had a great conversation about this and got to the bottom of some of it. If you would like to reach out to us directly, if you have a suggestion for subjects that you want us to cover, please reach out to us at heavydutypartsreport.com. All of our contact information is there. And I just want to say thank you for watching today and have a great weekend. See you next week. Bye.